This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
You know, some people say that Odoo business management software is like fertilizer, the way it promotes growth and all. But other people say Odoo is like a magic beanstalk because it grows with your company and is also magically affordable. And there's some people who would even say Odoo's individual software programs come together to build the perfect suite like building blocks. Well, Odoo is all of these things. Fertilizer, magic beanstalk, building blocks for business. So sign up now at odoo.com, ODOO.com.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on what your kids are spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely. And parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/iHeart.
Wild sounds of hockey.
All I can say is, wow.
All this negativity that's in this town sucks.
Oh, good. You homer!
This, whatever this is, iHeart jingle. How does that come up on your board, Brett?
Russo bed 1.
This would be something I'd listen to. So this is Michael Russo from The Athletic, filling in 9 to noon. PA getting a much-earned little vacation. He's out in Denver visiting his daughter. And Brett Blakemore behind the glass, and I'll be here for 3 hours. Great show. Don't worry, it's not just hockey. We're going to have definitely some hockey. But John Krasinski coming in studio, and in the final hour, we're going to have a little roundtable. Joe O'Donnell, Wild Joe Radio. He'll be coming in. We'll talk about the Wild. But Dave Mizutani, the former Wild beat writer for the Pioneer Press, also coming in. He now covers the Vikings for the Pioneer Press. He's also a Wolves fanatic, also fills in covering the Wolves with Jace Frederick, their awesome team over there at the Pioneer Press. So we're going to be having a last hour roundtable talking about the Wild, the Vikings, and the Wolves. So don't worry, it won't be all hockey. Ben Hankinson also coming on. Everybody here knows Ben Hankinson, the former Gophers standout, and he is a longtime agent. Has about $400 million worth of long-term contracts in. He's got a bunch of free agents this offseason, including two big fish that the Wild might be pursuing in Brock Besser and Brock Nelson. He'll be coming on in the second hour. And Chris Johnston, my colleague at The Athletic, a national hockey writer. He's also covering the Maple Leafs Florida Panthers series. He'll be coming on here in about 15 minutes. And I'll tell you what, Brett, I do not drive down here a lot in the morning. I always hear about the traffic. It was hellacious today. I know we're not L.A. or Miami or Chicago or New York or, Atlanta. But, man, this is not the way. I used to time it leaving my house 25 minutes down here. Not anymore.
Yep. Yeah, it's only trying to get here by 9 or to get here by 5 is just a nightmare.
Yeah.
So, I always plan, especially when I run 9 to noon, I'm like, I have to count another 20 minutes on my drive because it's always terrible.
Where are you living?
Kind of by MOA, like the Richfield area.
Yeah, and I'm the other way. So I come all the way from essentially Wisconsin. So today, thank goodness I plugged it into my Waze and realized, oh my Lord, I better leave right now. Where it would have been a little bit. I might have been doing the first segment for my car.
Did you do 94?
I did.
The whole way?
Yeah, and once you get down to by pretty much the gridlock by the U, it is just construction. It's only going to get worse because it's summertime.
It's that time.
What do you think of the playoffs so far? First of all, though, obviously Wolves got off to a tough start. I watched the Knicks game yesterday, and do you know that the Knicks, when I was in Vegas last week, to win that series, I think they were plus 1,100. So just $1, you win.
Yeah.
And now they're up 2-0 in the series. Like, they were not supposed to show up, and here they are, obviously win both games in Boston, and now going back home to Madison Square Garden. It feels like both the Celtics and the Cavs might be in trouble right now.
Yeah, the games last night, I think, is the NBA playoffs in a nutshell, because you have a game that's really close between two blue bloods that was entertaining, and the other game that night was just a complete laugher from the jump. No one cared. Thunder just absolutely whooped on the Nuggets. It was never even in contest. So I think that kind of explains the NBA playoffs.
Yeah.
Right there.
Although, back in the day, if you were favored, you pretty much were guaranteed to win. I mean, I don't think anybody thought the Knicks were going to make this thing a series, and here they are, at least up 2-0. But let's talk about what you and I both want to talk about, and that is the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. And Toronto 2-0 over the Florida Panthers. Now they always say you're not in trouble until you lose a home game. Florida's heading home for 2. Before trying to force a game 5, obviously the defending Stanley Cup champions. But don't you get the impression watching the series that this is not your grandfather's Toronto Maple Leafs? This franchise that hasn't won a Stanley Cup since 1967. This looks like the best brand of hockey that they've played with this core of Marner. Well, you could call it the core 4 of Marner, Tavares, Matthews, and Nylander. Nylander looks like might be the best player on the ice in this series. Marner scores a huge goal last night right after the Panthers tied the game, and they certainly look like they are here for real.
Yeah, I mean, they had their chance to capitulate, right? You go up 3-0 on Ottawa, and we lose a game. We lose another game. And
that was fun. I was hoping.
Yeah, I don't know if I hope for the collapse, because I don't really have any hate or love for the Maple Leafs. I see a lot of us in them, as far as a fandom goes, of just being tortured. So, no, happy they pulled through with that. But yeah, I was expecting this to be, and it still could be a series. I mean, this Florida team's really good, but I was expecting it probably to be 1-1 at this point in time.
Yeah, I was convinced, and man, was that a good game yesterday. Some definitely bizarre calls in the game. Really peculiar embellishment call on Evan Rodriguez,
who left the game.
Who left the game because his visor was cracked. Like, everybody was leaving like he was hurt. He left with all the equipment guys, and maybe you got to know the Florida Panthers equipment guys to know that. Everybody was acting like he was hurt. It was actually because his visor went headfirst into the glass. And Francois Saint Laurent, who is the referee that Bill Guerin called an effing you-know-what hole. I'm trying to figure out how to say this without you having to hit the dump button. Twice on Long Island at the early part of April when Middleton was put into the boards. He's the one that calls no penalty on the board and an embellishment on Evan Rodriguez. And I am all for embellishment. Like, I think the way to curb embellishment in the NHL is to just call the embellishment and not the first. You always see the even up, right? You hook them and the embellishment. Here, I love when they just call the embellishment. I think that's the way to stop it. I think the other way to stop it is to not give that player that has a history of that the benefit of the doubt. But to say that Evan Rodriguez, embellished being boarded into the boards, that was bizarre. I don't think it was like a major. But to me, that they don't even call a minor and then call the embellishment.
Well, if you
hilarious.
See the numbers.
Yeah.
So what's this ref's name?
Saint Laurent.
Saint Laurent.
Yeah. And he, not so coincidentally, did not get a single wild game in the playoffs because of the whole Bill Guerin calling him. They didn't want any part of potential, if anybody was going to accuse the referee of doing something wrong to the Wild, that it was payback for Bill Guerin going off.
And the good news is the Wild didn't get him, so the officiating was great the entire series.
Yeah. Unbelievable end of the first round for the St. Louis Blues Winnipeg Jets series and the Dallas Stars Colorado series. Both Colorado and Winnipeg have epic comebacks in Game 7 to win. Winnipeg gets to the second round by scoring 2 goals with the net empty, one with 1.6 seconds left, and then a Neil Pionk to Adam Lowry goal. And then Rantanen has the natural hat trick in the third period against Colorado, his old team, to get payback. And then last night in the first game of the Dallas-Winnipeg series, in the second period, Mikko Rantanen gets a hat trick. So 6 goals in his last 2 games, 3 in the second period last night, 3 in the third period in Game 7 in the first round. And talk about somebody that has, Dallas Stars fans were getting aggravated with his play down the stretch after being traded there in his first 3 games of the first round series, and then he just absolutely turned it on. And now if Dallas goes and wins the Cup or winds up in the finals, he is absolutely in the Conn Smythe mix.
I continue to be vindicated about the Dallas Stars. I was banging their drum. Everybody on Beyond the Pond, Pat Micheletti, Kevin Fallon, they've got no chance because they're losing 2 of their best players, in Heisen and Robertson. And I said, good teams, when they lose their 2 best players, are still viable because they've got good scoring depth. And here they are in the second round winning games. I see Robertson was back.
Yep, but Scheifele was back.
Think about this for a third line. Wyatt Johnston centering Robertson and Marchment. That's their third line.
Yeah.
And, that's scoring depth we can only dream of.
Yeah, it's a little different than Johansson, Gaudreau, and Nyquist.
Yeah, a little bit.
And by the way, to your point on losing 2 best players and how that did absolutely impact the Wild season, and with Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek out for a while, Bill Guerin did make a point, and we'll talk a lot about during the show, his end of the year presser with John Hynes. But he made the point, with the lack of depth that the Wild have had the last couple of years based on just the cap hits and the cap pain that Parisian Suter buyouts caused, that's why they can't replace those guys, that it shouldn't be as impactful as obviously if you lose those 2, it's going to be impactful, but the reality is the Wild can't replace them. You're replacing them with Ben Jones and Devin Shore and Brendan Gaunce, and not, as you pointed out, their third line there. So we'll talk a lot about that to go, and we'll talk more about this series with Chris Johnston coming up as well. Carolina up 1-0 on Washington. I have a vested interest in Carolina or Florida advancing, because if Carolina or Florida advances, I'm covering the Eastern Final. If it's Washington and Toronto, I'm covering the Western Final.
Do you want to work, or do you want
No. I'm definitely covering one of the 2 conference finals and the Stanley Cup final, but it's just a matter of who advances on where I go, where we need sort of coverage. So Carolina's up 1-0 in that series. So if Florida or Carolina advances, I go east. If it's Washington, Toronto, I go west, just based on where we need me. But man, that Carolina game, they love to shoot the puck. And at one point in that game, the shot attempts were 90 to 30. It was crazy. And then finally they get the big overtime goal there. So by Jacob Slavin, who's not exactly your offensive defenseman, but proved his worth during the Four Nations. So unbelievable series there. Then an epic comeback again in the third period. In Vegas the other day, Edmonton rallies a couple goals by Leon Draisaitl. Vegas was without Pietrangelo and Dorofeev, but Edmonton winds up going up 1-0 in that series. That has the makings of a long series, Brett.
I think they all do, honestly. I don't see a series on here where I'm like, this is going to be just a blowout one way. Still, even the Toronto-Florida series, I still think is going to be a series, despite them being up 2-0. So I think all of these have potential Game 6, Game 7 vibes to me. I don't see a blowout on the docket. I think the most likely one, if I had to pick one, would probably be the Edmonton one. But even then, I'm not confident on that. I think that's still going to be a series as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. Although Vegas, to me, I don't know, Edmonton's starting to play really balanced hockey that you don't just need McDavid and Draisaitl to do everything. They're getting great blue line. But, who's playing great there is John Klingberg. And now that he's got a new hip. But Vegas, I just don't know. I picked them to go to the Stanley Cup final. I'm starting to think it's more Dallas. But Vegas, I just don't know. They didn't look overly impressive against the Wild. I know they won the series, but the Wild easily, some of those games were toss-ups. In overtime, 3 straight 1-goal losses. Let's do this. Let's take a break. When we come back, we got Chris Johnston coming on. We will talk a lot of hockey the last hour of the show. We'll talk about Marco Rossi, Philip Gustafson, Kirill Kaprizov, everything that's going on there. But when we come back, Chris Johnston from The Athletic, we're going to talk about the Leafs series. We're going to talk about a lot of the open coaching vacancies in the league and some of the other series as well. We'll be right back. This is Michael Russo from The Athletic on The Fan.
Before we go, the Fan and BigDeck.com wants to give you a shot to win bonus bucks with our national cash contest. Head to KFAN.com and the keyword bank. The keyword bank, KFAN.com.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hi, this is Javon, your Blinds.com design consultant.
Oh, wow. A real person.
Yep. I'm here to help with everything from selecting the perfect window treatments to...
Well, I've got a complicated project.
No problem. We make the complex simple. I can even help schedule a professional measure and install.
I didn't realize you did that.
We can also send you samples fast and free.
Wow. I mean, I always thought I needed a designer to come to my home, but scheduling's always a nightmare.
Not with Blinds.com. We're on your schedule. And there's no haggling, pressure, or hidden fees either.
I just might have to do more.
Whatever you need. How about you tell me what you had in mind?
Okay, then. So the first room we're looking at is for guests coming over, and I'm thinking of something...
Blinds.com has covered over 25 million windows, all backed by a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Shop Blinds.com now and save up to 40% site-wide. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Hi, I'm Cindy Crawford, and I'm the founder of Meaningful Beauty. Well, I don't know about you, but I never liked being told, oh, wow, you look so good for your age. Why even bother saying that? Why don't you just say you look great at any age, every age? That's what Meaningful Beauty is all about. We create products that make you feel confident in your skin at the age you are now.
Meaningful Beauty. Beautiful skin at every age. Learn more at meaningfulbeauty.com.
In the heat of battle, your squad relies on you. Don't let them down. Unlock elite gaming tech at Lenovo.com. Dominate every match with next-level speed, seamless streaming, and performance that won't quit, so you can push your gameplay beyond performance with Intel Core Ultra processors. For the next era of gaming, upgrade to smooth, high-quality streaming with Intel Wi-Fi 6E and maximize game performance with enhanced overclocking. Win the tech search. Power up at Lenovo.com.
Lenovo.
Keyword
KFAN.
Michael Russo from The Athletic back here on The Fan. Ben Hankinson still to come. John Krasinski coming in studio to talk Wolves and Golden State Warriors. Last hour of the show, Joe O'Donnell and Dame Mizutani will have a little roundtable about the Wild, the Wolves, and the Vikings. But my next guest is one of my favorite people, one of the great insiders in all of hockey, and you can read him at The Athletic. You can see him on TSN. You can follow him on X at Reporter Chris. That is Chris Johnston. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing well, Michael. How are you, bud?
What's going on? I missed you and Pierre. We gotta figure out a way to get to a conference final soon.
I know. Unfortunately, the Wild didn't push on, but I'm sure I'll be coming there to cover a playoff game at some point.
Yeah, maybe that's the hope, right? 10 years from now, maybe. We'll see. But you are covering the Meat Grinder series already. This Leafs Florida series, 2-0 Leafs. Yesterday was just a fantastic hockey game, but this does feel like a very different Maple Leafs team. Just the way they responded to the tying goal in the third period, to me, says everything about their mettle right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of credit, quite honestly, goes to Craig Berube. I mean, the top end of this Leafs roster has remained unchanged through, this is now their 9th season in the playoffs. But what has changed, there's some personnel around them, but I think the head coach this year has, got them playing a different style, convince those players and the others in the lineup to, commit to a way of playing that can have success in the playoffs, and they've had that so far. I mean, they're 6-2 through their 8 playoff games, and obviously built a 2-0 lead here against Florida. Now, it's still going to be a tough task, and last night's game really could have gone either way. The Panthers had all kinds of pressure and certainly more shots and scoring chances in that game, but it sort of changed the atmosphere where Toronto's top players, that they can be game breakers. Really, Nylander had a big goal in that game. Mitch Marner scored the winning goal, and then at the other end of the ice, they blocked, I think it was 25 shots or something in the game. So, it does feel a little different, and obviously enthusiasm starting to surge here in Toronto. But until they go down to Florida and find a way to win the game there, I think the series is still very much up in the air.
Yep, makes sense. And obviously, I think Brad Treliving made some great moves at the deadline, getting in Scott Lawton and Brandon Carlo. And but the one thing you mentioned, Berube, I mean, again, coached the St. Louis Blues to a Stanley Cup 6 years ago now, which is crazy to think that it was that long ago. Yeah. But just the way he reacted to the whole Stolarz and Bennett thing the other night, he pointed out it should have been a penalty. He didn't whine though that the league needed to, sit Bennett for a game or two. And he just went on and sort of got everybody sort of level where they weren't just going crazy about what a lot of people felt was a dirty play by Sam Bennett. I think it was probably should have been a penalty on the ice. I don't think it really rose to the level of supplement discipline. It probably helps when you have somebody like Wall coming in as your backup, somebody that's been in the playoffs before, that you feel a little confident. But just the way that Berube, in my eyes, just settled it, didn't create distractions, just got his guys realizing, let's go up 2 on the series. Don't worry about the outside noise right now.
Yeah, he's really had kind of a steady hand, I'd call it. Like, obviously this is a pretty big media market, and the Leafs are the biggest sporting concern here in Toronto. And so, there's always all kinds of chaos and nonsense that goes on. I'm part of it, so I'm certainly not aiming any criticism at my colleagues here, but, I think that he's done a really nice job of not feeding into that, of not adding any more life than there's already enough life to a story like that when you see Stolarz leave the ice, and the fact that it's Sam Bennett in the middle of that play, is a player that probably hasn't earned a ton of benefit of the doubt for opposing fans because he is so known for getting under opponent's skin. And, it had Craig Berube, even approached that in front of the microphone differently, obviously behind the scenes, I think there could be a totally different temperature in terms of how the team responded. But, he helped make sure they didn't put any energy in that direction. I think he's just been really humble, quite honestly. I mean, there's some big personalities on this team. There's a lot of players, 3 players making, among the highest paid players in the entire league. And he's found a way to navigate whatever egos, whatever, things come with all that and get the best out of his team. And that's obviously a huge part of the job that he has been tasked with doing, and then the reason the Leafs have had more success this season than the years prior.
I saw, by the way, Chris, a funny video the other day. It was on Instagram Reels, and first it shows Pierre LeBrun interviewing Paul Maurice, asking him in the post-game presser about the hit, and then it goes right to you asking Berube, and I just thought it was so funny, the 2 athletic writers going toe-to-toe with the 2 different coaches about the same subject. So it was pretty funny. It would be a great advertisement for the Athletic, that's for sure.
Love that. I didn't see the video, but
I should have sent it to you.
Obviously we're dominating the microphone as much as we can in this series.
We are talking to Chris Johnston of The Athletic and TSN. You can follow him on X at reporter Chris. William Nylander, what an absolute stud right now. I mean, what a great goal last night. And I loved Craig Berube after the game when asked about what he's learned about him. He said, just stay out of his way. Let him, don't say anything. Let him do his thing. And he is, everybody always talks about Matthews, and there's always the noise around Marner, and we all know about Tavares there. But man, just the way Nylander has become really a stud on this team the last couple playoffs.
Yeah, I think what's always stood out to me about William is he literally does not care about anything in terms of attention, criticism, scrutiny. I think he's well suited for a market like this because of I think the bigger the stage, he's one of those players that it doesn't become crippling for him. It becomes something he can use as fuel, or he gets him excited. And there was a moment really early in the season when I'm talking about even Berube and Nylander specifically, where Nylander publicly complained about his ice time, and I think a new coach, if they were different than Berube at that point in time, might have taken that as sort of a challenge to their authority, maybe responded with a heavy hand. And Berube, to his credit, sort of worked through that with William, gave him more ice time, let him do his thing. And I think that's, you fast forward now months later, when I heard that comment last night, I immediately thought back to that. I mean, he understood at a certain point that this isn't someone you have to motivate. If anything, it's almost like by doing too much, you might mess things up a little bit. That letting him be is probably the best way to course of action here. And if you go back to when the Leafs finished out Ottawa in Game 6, Nylander had a 3-point night on his birthday, scored a couple goals in that game, a couple more points in Game 1, and then scores the goal last night. And so he's not on a Mikko Rantanen-like level when we talk about players that are having amazing stretches through the playoffs here, but he's been a big part now of 3 straight Leafs victories, and he's a bit of an X factor because he plays on the second line. And so when we get into matchups in the playoffs, some nights Matthews and Marner might not be doing as much damage going head-to-head with the best on the other team, but Nylander's a pretty good option on your second line.
Yeah, no doubt, Chris. A couple more on this series, and then I did want to talk to you about Rantanen and then some of the coaching vacancies in the league. But Brad Marchand, it is just so weird to see him in a Florida uniform wreaking the same havoc that he always seems to, had done in the Boston uniform, especially against the Leafs in the playoffs. And just, he's showing up, he's creating a ruckus, he's little dirty plays, but scores big goals. And just what's it been like watching him in this same sort of atmosphere, only in a totally different uniform?
Well, I mean, even though Florida's down 2-0 in the series, I think you can understand in watching him in these games why the Panthers, went out and paid the price they did to acquire him at the deadline. I mean, he's, to my eyes, has been very effective for them in these first 2 games. In fact, his line with Lundell and Luosterainen is scored 4 goals in 2 games at 5-on-5. I mean, if you're getting that from what's effectively your third line, typically good things are going to happen for your team in the playoffs, and they still might for the Panthers. So, Marchand is, believe it or not, the oldest guy in this series. He turns 37 this weekend. Still just a young buck in my eyes, but he's had a real impact, and I think he's bringing the Panthers into the fight. And I had a chance to speak with him a little bit post-game last night. I mean, one of the reasons I cautioned against, at any point until the Panthers are done, they're not done in my eyes, is because obviously your experience, their core players have garnered over going to back-to-back cups and winning last year. But then adding someone like Marchand, I think it just, there's going to be no sense of, panic or anything around that team. And, he just gets the job done. And frankly, he's 4-0. Head-to-head in playoff series with the Leafs all during his time with Boston. But, I think he at least has some insight into what can bring success out there. So, we'll see what he's got in mind when they get down to Florida. But I certainly don't think he or his team are going to go quietly in this series.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, he's going to have to be good, though, because I don't think Matthew Tkachuk is completely healthy. It was actually shocking how little he played in the third period yesterday. There was a stretch where he didn't play for 8 or 9 minutes. It felt like, at least according to the game sheet. So we'll see what happens. I did want to ask you just quickly what you think of the future right now of the Leafs. I mean, what is going to happen? A lot of Wild fans, they love Matthew Knies just from his time here with the Gophers, has been unbelievable. I think he's put himself on the forefront of making the Olympic team next year if he continues this up. But what do you think happens with him? A lot of people talking offer sheets. What do you think happens to Mitch Marner and also John Tavares? A lot there for you.
I think they almost go in order once the season's done. Like it's hard to handicap what happens. I think, first of all, when the season ends, which of course could be in 10 days or could be in 6 weeks, if the Leafs make to the Cup final, the Leafs are going to circle back and try to sign Marner, and then all the decisions flow from there. If he's staying, naturally he's going to be signing a big ticket contract, and that will affect how much money they can afford to spend on Tavares and Knies. I think they'll try to sign all 3. In the case of Knies, that would mean, if Marner stays, he's probably, looking at a bridge deal, a shorter term deal with a lower cap hit in the meantime. If Marner were to leave, I think they would swiftly and quickly try to get Matthew Knies signed to a 7 or 8 year contract, which would carry a higher cap hit because they'd have more room to do it. But, the Leafs are obviously cognizant of the possibility of an offer sheet. I don't think, unless the offer is just crazy, that they wouldn't match on Knies. I mean, he's without question kind of a core piece now for this team, even though he's younger and, still establishing himself in the league. But I mean, he's stepped up big time in the playoffs. He's done it in past years. He's one of those guys. He's such a big man, as you know, but I think he's almost still realizing, what that can do for him on the ice. And you're starting to see it, especially when the games are as physical as they are in the playoffs, that, he just realizes there's no one out there that can really do anything about him if he sets his mind to it. And so, I think that there's a timeline here where all three of them are still Maple Leafs next season, but really the biggest question mark is Marner and what he wants to do. I think Tavares, at this stage of his life, he's had 3 kids actually since he signed with the Maple Leafs. He's obviously, him and his wife are both from this area. I think he'll do almost anything he can to stay, that he'll work with the team in terms of making that contract work. But, Marner has a rare opportunity to hit free agency at a time when the cap's about to surge, when he's still in the prime of his career, and there's all kinds of opportunity that could be out there for him if he does that. And so the Leafs will have to wait and see what he decides, and then I think it will kind of affect the decisions that come behind it.
Yeah, I really it's going to be so enticing for him to maybe even get outside of that noise. Like one team I could see going hard after him is like a team like Utah, just because,
Utah, I mean, we'll see what happens with the Golden Knights, but, Vegas is always in the mix for big players. I mean, Marner's had to deal with a lot here. Some of it, of course, of his own doing, but, being a local kid, I think that the opportunity to go somewhere else and make a lot more money and be the frontline player, I mean, that's going to have to go through his triangulation at some point, but he actually became a father for the first time 3 days ago. And so, I think he's very much in the moment here with the Leafs and having success, and all that will take care of itself on the other side of this playoff run.
He spent a lot of time here at the end of last summer in Minnesota with Justin Hall and Jake Gardner, so maybe he fell in love with the lakes and the area as well. Who knows, right? Mikko Rantanen and Chris Johnston from The Athletic. Have you ever seen anything like this? First of all, the unbelievable vengeance that he has against the Colorado Avalanche by single-handedly in that third period getting a hat trick to knock them out of the playoffs after they never envisioned when they traded him to Carolina that he was going to wind up haunting them in their division forever. And then he goes out in the second period yesterday and gets a hat trick in game 1 of the second round against Winnipeg. What an unbelievable stretch of hockey for Mikko.
Yeah, as someone who gets paid to write, I'm going to fall woefully short of finding the words to describe just how special this is. I mean, I don't think there's we've probably never seen any individual stretch by one player in the playoffs ever in history that matches this. And then you add all the sort of secondary drama with this midseason trade, with the fact that it came at the end at the expense of the Avalanche in the last round with his game 6 and 7 performances. There's no question in my mind that that's fueling him. That the fact he never wanted to leave Colorado, that they traded him. I think that he's been professional about it. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's been an added source of motivation for him. And if you look at Mikko Rantanen's career, I mean, in a points per game or goals per game perspective, I mean, he's one of the dominant players of this generation when the chips are down and it's the most important time of the year. And he's showing it yet again, and he's showing it at a level we've never seen before. He's doing it without Nathan MacKinnon, right? There were some people out there that thought, so much of his success was driven by who he was playing with and the team he was playing for, but, he's doing it in a different environment now, and a lot of it is happening on plays. I think of the one in game 7, he came in basically 1-on-3 and turned it into a goal somehow. So, he's a man on a mission, and it's pretty special to watch right now. And it's a good thing we don't vote on the Conn Smythe Trophy for a few weeks' time, because right now, I mean, he's first, second, and third on my ballot.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more, and couldn't happen to a better dude, too. I don't know how often you've gotten to interview Mikko, but every time I chat with him, it's really engaging conversation. Such a good guy to deal with, and really happy for him. And this Dallas team suddenly looks like, especially when they get Heiskanen back, like they're going to be a force, especially if Ottinger continues to play like this. Let me ask you quickly, Chris, lots of coaching vacancies in the league. The Canucks, the Ducks, the Blackhawks, the Bruins, the Kraken, the Pens, Flyers. I think we all kind of assume that Rick Tockett's going there. Anything brewing of those names that suddenly you think are intriguing?
Well, the Ducks are about to come off the board. They're set today to announce that Joe Quenneville is going to be their head coach. Darren Dreger, my TFN teammate, has been on this basically as we're speaking right now. But, it does sound as though there's a formal announcement of that coming any time now. And obviously Phil Quenneville, it's a big name. I think that's a job that held a lot of appeal to a lot of coaches because the Ducks are on the rise. They had, I believe, the biggest or second biggest year-over-year jump in points from last season to this season. They made the coaching change, firing Greg Cronin after the year. And now the expectation, of course, is that they're going to be ready to win and compete for a playoff spot. Quenneville hasn't worked in the league since his time in Florida. He was involved with the Chicago Blackhawks when the Kyle Beach saga happened, and there was a few years there where the league didn't permit him to work. He's been eligible to be hired since last July, and I know the Ducks did an extensive search into his background before getting to the point here where they were ready to hire him. So, that's sort of the first shoe to drop. And, I know in some of those other vacancies, there's a lot of overlap in names and candidates, but it sounds like the interview processes have really started to ramp up around the league. And so I would expect we'll see more head coaching positions filled here in the near future.
Right, and obviously David Carl's audible of extending his contract in University of Denver has changed a lot of the big fish and the teams that were all going to be set to go after him. So, hey, Chris, really appreciate it. Enjoy availability today, and have a safe flight down to South Florida, and enjoy a cigar at our favorite area there, right next to the hotel.
I just miss having you, my favorite Florida chauffeur, and know all of that area, but. Going to be a fun
if the one thing I have been told is that if Florida or Carolina advances, I'm covering the Eastern Final. Otherwise, I'm covering the West. So maybe I'll be seeing you very, very closely if it's Carolina versus Toronto very soon.
Okay, that'd be great, pal.
Yep,
We look forward to seeing you soon.
Yep, that is Chris Johnston of The Athletic and TSN. You can follow him on X at Reporter Chris. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Wolves. John Krasinski in studio, my colleague at The Athletic, and this awesome series. Didn't get off to a great start for the Wolves, but Golden State, Minnesota, Game 2 tonight at Target Center.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hi, this is Javon, your Blinds.com design consultant.
Oh, wow. A real person.
Yep. I'm here to help with everything from selecting the perfect window treatments to...
Well, I've got a complicated project.
No problem. We make the complex simple. I can even help schedule a professional measure and install.
I didn't realize you did that.
We can also send you samples fast and free.
Wow. I always thought I needed a designer to come to my home, but scheduling's always a nightmare.
Not with Blinds.com. We're on your schedule. And there's no haggling, pressure, or hidden fees either.
I just might have to do more.
Whatever you need. How about you tell me what you had in mind?
Okay, then. So the first room we're looking at is for guests coming over, and I'm thinking of something...
Blinds.com has covered over 25 million windows, all backed by a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Shop Blinds.com now and save up to 40% site-wide. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Hi, I'm Cindy Crawford, and I'm the founder of Meaningful Beauty. Well, I don't know about you, but I never liked being told, oh, wow, you look so good for your age. Why even bother saying that? Why don't you just say you look great at any age, every age? That's what Meaningful Beauty is all about. We create products that make you feel confident in your skin at the age you are now.
Meaningful Beauty. Beautiful skin at every age. Learn more at meaningfulbeauty.com.
Come on, why is this taking so long? This thing is ancient.
Still using yesterday's tech? Upgrade to the ThinkPad X1 Carbon. Ultra-light, ultra-powerful, and built for serious productivity with Intel Core Ultra processors, blazing speed, and AI-powered performance that keeps up with your business, not the other way around.
Whoa, this thing moves.
Stop hitting snooze on new tech. Win the tech search at Lenovo.com. Lenovo. Unlock AI experiences with the ThinkPad X1 Carbon, powered by Intel Core Ultra processors, so you can work, create, and boost productivity all on one device.
We'll be back here on The Fan.
Bonus Bonus Box is back on KFAN. We have 9 chances for you to win $1,000 every weekday. That's every hour from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. To enter keywords and learn more, head to KFAN.com. Bonus Box is presented by BigDeck.com.
Michael Russo from The Athletic back here on The Fan. Ben Hankinson still to come. That is Brock Besser and Brock Nelson's agent. And obviously, Wild fans are interested into what he has to say about that because both are free agents this offseason. The Wild might be interested in. In the final hour, Joe O'Donnell and Dane Muzutani coming into studio. I was going to have a roundtable just with Joe to talk Wild, and then I started to look at the X, which is always bad. And there are people like, you're going to go talk hockey the entire show? And now I'm getting people like, you're not talking enough hockey. But so I invited Dan in so we could talk about the Wolves as well and the Vikings and all that stuff. But very happy to be joined by my second to none colleague here at The Athletic here in the Twin Cities, covering the Timberwolves Golden State Warriors series. That is John Krasinski, Johnny Athletic on... well, actually, that's not your name on The Athletic. We have to actually spell out John Krasinski. Johnny Athletic is your name on The Fan. Yes. John Krasinski on the X Machine and Instagram and all that type of stuff. Really kind of stunning game one of the series. Just the way that Ant came out, being as dry as he was, at least in the first half, and just as a whole, just not shooting well. I mean, a lot of guys, Nikhil. I mean, everybody. What do you make of that series not being able to win that game, especially when the Warriors lose Steph Curry for a good chunk of the series, at least at the beginning?
Yeah, I think obviously there's not a reason to panic right now because it's a long series, and if you have one game, that's not the worst thing in the world. That said, in the playoffs, anytime you have a real chance to win a game, you really got to do it because you just never know what's going to happen throughout the course of the series. You get another injury, you get one of the other Golden State Warriors that just goes off and has a crazy night. And so I was definitely disappointed in just the sluggishness overall from the team because it's a team historically that when they have had 3, 4, 5 days to prepare for a series, they're usually come in really sharp. And for whatever reason, it just was not there in game one. I think the Warriors deserve some credit for that, but this is a team right now that their last 2 games can't hit anything from 3-point range. And so you wonder if it's just a little bit of a mental block that's creeping in right now. I think tonight, if they could, hit a few threes right away and just kind of break the dam open, I think you would see a team relax and play more like it's capable of, but they were pressing in game one for sure.
This is the hockey writer in me, but in hockey, you almost never practice, it seems. And I was surprised listening to Chris Finch leading into the series on how often it felt like they had 3-4 days in a row where they didn't take a day off. They took the first one between series. Do you think they almost over practiced, that maybe they went in a little sort of maybe the anticipation, but also a little mentally fried?
Yeah, I wonder about that because I think there's that possibility, but I also think that I talked to a few of the players afterward, and it's maybe the kind of practice that was happening because there was no up and down scrimmaging. Right. There was no kind of full contact stuff, and I do think that may have contributed to a little bit of rust, actually.
Right.
And
plus, they didn't know who they were playing.
They didn't know who they were playing, and so it felt like they went through a lot of things that were important, transition offense and kind of X's and O's things. But I do think that maybe the guys would have benefited from just a little bit of up and down and just play. And so they did not look like they were in any kind of rhythm or any kind of flow. And the Warriors, even if they were a little tired coming off of game 7, they were sharp because they had played just 2 days prior. They were kind of more in a game rhythm. And I think that did play a little bit of a role in just how ugly it was offensively for the Wolves.
I love the way that Chris Finch doesn't mince words. So with you guys, whenever he's on the Fan, he's just a fun person to listen to. Whenever I listen to any coach talk, I do it from a reporter standpoint. And the one thing I love about Chris is he doesn't mince words when calling out a player.
Yeah,
that's something we definitely don't see on the other side of the river with John Hines. He is loath to criticize anybody, and will change the subject like the best politician in the world. But Chris didn't mince words with Ant on game one. And considering the series that he had against the Lakers, that was shocking to me because this guy, to me, if anybody deserved a little equity, maybe a behind the closed doors little pep talk, it's probably Ant, but he did not. He talked about his lack of energy and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's unique about that relationship, you're right, even in the NBA, certainly in the NFL too, coaches are very careful about, especially their star players and throwing them out there. Chris Finch takes pride, I think, in being able to say those things to Ant and about Ant publicly because Ant responds well to them. He is one of the kind of rare players who wants you in his face a little bit. And usually right after a game, we asked Ant about it, and he didn't really necessarily agree with what Finch was saying. But generally speaking, the next day when he looks at the film again, when he goes over it, he's always like, yeah, Finchy was right. And so there is a real quality to Anthony Edwards that he has a very thick skin. He is willing to take on that criticism. And when Finch can do that to Edwards, that means he can do it to anyone else. And so it's very much a tone setter for the rest of the team. And I think Finch's willingness to do that, it brings a level of accountability to the rest of the team as well. Like, hey man, if he can go after Ant like that, he's going to go after me like that. And so, I have to be on my P's and Q's. And so, it's very much sort of Popovich Duncan like in terms of just the relationship, and that's really important for what the Timberwolves are trying to build here.
And you expect, I assume, a bounce back from Ant tonight? I
do, yeah. I think he usually does. Once he's able to process something and look at it, he's really a smart guy. And so sometimes in the moment he can have trouble adjusting right on the fly, but usually you give him a day, you let him look at things, let him figure things out, have some coaching. He'll probably play better. And really he played better in the second half of game one. I mean, he was 0 for 10 to start the game and then 9 for 12 to finish. So he started to figure things out. It's just, it happened a little bit too late. And so I would anticipate that he's going to come out firing tonight and that, you'll get him, you'll get, Julius Randle will play better. DiVincenzo and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, a lot of guys that need to play better will probably be a little sharper tonight.
I'll tell you one thing you cannot also do in the NHL, and that is send clips to the league. That was 25 years ago, or like they'd send a VHS tape. Look at this. That doesn't happen anymore because they have 2 war rooms in the NHL. They see everything. They review everything. So that stuff does not happen. There are phone calls and things like that. But then Chris Finch says on Rudy, they sent a bunch of stuff of the league, said they do a lot of fouling, shoving, holding, pushing, and tackling of Rudy. And that he basically said what a lot of times you hear in the NHL is that he doesn't know of a guy like Rudy that's allowed to be physically sort of attacked the way that he is and no repercussions from the referees. So then Steve Kerr responds by saying, well, they were doing that to Steph as well. They could have called 6 fouls, and then he's going to send his own clips to the league. So, I mean, it's pretty funny the sort of the manipulating of the officials that have happened just after one game in this 7-game series.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is gamesmanship at its finest. Chris Finch is one of the more vocal coaches when it comes to officiating and wanting to have things kind of reformed and improved in that area. I was just a little surprised because it was just one game, and it can kind of come off if you're complaining about the officials of a little sour grapes. And especially because I watched that game, and yes, I think Rudy was fouled. I think Ant was fouled a lot more actually. But there were other things that were much more contributors to that loss than the fouling. And the interesting thing is like the Wolves really want to play physical. They want to beat you up, and they thrive in that environment generally. So if you're calling attention to that, I think if they tighten the whistle, that's going to work against the Wolves. And so my belief is that Chris Finch's motivation with that line of messaging was that where he calls out Ant publicly, I think he feels like he wants to support Rudy Gobert publicly. And like, this is his way of saying, Rudy, I'm standing up for you. So give me your best. I got your back kind of a thing. And so it was a little bit more of that behind the scenes in terms of his motivation for it. But I think if they have a tight whistle tonight and they're calling a bunch of stuff, that's not going to favor the Wolves in this series. So it's interesting to see how he does that.
Different refs every game, like the NHL. Yep. So you never know where you're going to get different personalities, things like that. By the way, if you want to text the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line, that's 64686. We got a bunch already for Johnny. And if you want to call, he's going to be in here until about 10:30 or so before he has to head out to the shoot around. That's 1-800-320-5326. What do you do at the shoot around? Just tweet out lines like you do in the NHL? Or?
No lines. We unlike you guys, we don't get to watch anything that they go through.
I know.
So.
I was shocked the year that I covered the Heat.
Yeah.
Like you get in like the last 10 minutes of practice.
Shoot free throws and in like individual shooting afterwards. So there is zero to glean.
So even at shoot arounds, you don't get to watch.
No. Okay. So we'll talk to guys. We get to, interview guys, and just kind of get their mindset on the game and what has to happen. But yeah, there's no, being able to look at, hey, this is what they're working on. These are the pairings. These are the starting lineups. These are the things that they're working on. None of that for
that's interesting.
NBA.
Yeah. So a lot of stuff at the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line about Mike Conley and asking if he's showing his age, asking if they would ever put DiVincenzo. How do you pronounce it?
DiVincenzo.
There you go.
Yeah.
In the starting lineup for Conley. What do you think right now?
This happens all the time. Mike will have a bad game, which he did in game 1. And then there's immediate calls for gotta bench him. He's too old. But Mike Conley is one of the most valuable players on the team, and he usually finds a way to bounce back. We'll see if this sustains over a couple more games. Maybe you do look at that, but Chris Finch is not a knee-jerk guy. And so he really believes in Mike Conley, and the rest of the team believes in him. And so I think it's just as possible that Conley plays well tonight, hits a couple of big shots, runs the offense, and does things exactly the way that he should, versus him going 0 for 5 again. So it's way too early to make that kind of a big time adjustment. But if it does continue, you certainly have to look at it. But I just think that he is so important to what they do that they will stick with him and give him every chance to play better tonight.
Yeah. How do you think they'll, they obviously did a great job, the Warriors, in game 1 dealing with no Steph Curry. This is something that doesn't happen to him a lot. Buddy Hield was awesome. Jimmy Butler was awesome. How do you think they respond the rest of the way? Now the difference here now is the Wolves know that he's at least out for 3 games. Right. Most likely.
Yeah. It's really one of the Wolves' biggest character flaws as a team is that when another team is missing a key player or two, they take their foot off the gas and they take it for granted. And I think there was a little bit of that in game 1, and they have to really guard against that in game 2, because with Jimmy Butler, with Draymond Green, they are ultra competitors. Like, they will do everything they can to ramp up the intensity, to do what needs to be done to win the game. And Buddy Hield is playing really well right now. And so we saw in game 7 against Houston, Steph didn't play well at all, and Buddy just essentially took his place and hit 9 threes, and they win the game. So this is still a very dangerous team for the Warriors. But the Wolves have much more pressure on their shoulders now, because now you go into it, first of all, you've already lost 1 home game. Now you're playing a team without Steph Curry. Like, you have to win. And so how they handle that pressure is going to be interesting, because they have not shot the ball well. Do they have a weight on their shoulders tonight, just trying to break out and trying to even this series? And so I'm going to be really interested to see the first 8-10 minutes of this game and just how the Wolves approach it from a mental standpoint, because I think the Warriors are going to play completely free and easy. They've already won once at home, and they don't have Steph, so there's no expectation on them. And when you have that, that's kind of a dangerous combination. So I'm by no means expecting some sort of cakewalk for the Wolves tonight.
Yeah, I got a kick out of the Warriors saying that they weren't sending Steph Curry back to the Bay Area because he was going to work out with Rick Celebrini, their longtime strength coach. And hockey fans know Rick Celebrini really well. His last name, of course, Macklin Celebrini's dad. He's drafted by his hometown Sharks, and he's out in the World Championships right now, getting to be tutored by Sidney Crosby. But Rick Celebrini does seem like he is like sort of the class of this position in the NBA.
For sure. Like the Warriors have the gold standard for many things with their franchise and with taking care of players, but Celebrini is just a revered figure in the league. The way that he does things and helps that team from a physical health standpoint is incredible. I mean, just the fact that this is the first soft tissue injury Steph Curry has had in his career. Like, huge for Curry, the work that he puts into his body, but Celebrini figures huge into just how these players take care of themselves. You look at them historically, there's not been a lot of major injuries that they've had to deal with. Klay Thompson went through his things that were kind of more fluky. Kevin Durant had his, but Celebrini is really respected, and they're certainly leaning on him a lot right now to try and get Steph Curry back for maybe Game 5 or Game 6 of this series.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. It's amazing that you don't have, and Wild fans know how tricky a hammy is. They saw it with Kirill Kaprizov in 2022 in the Dallas series. But it is amazing that this is sort of the first one that he's had to deal with of this. When we come back, I want to talk to you about, this person just took the question right out of my mouth. And that is, I wanted to ask you about 3-pointers and this new trend in the NBA. It's not new anymore. That's a question from Joe, question about and all that type of stuff as well. When we come back with Joe, with John Krasinski, again, you can text us at 64686 or you can call at 1-800-320-5326. We got another segment or two with John. We'll be back here on The Fan.
Okay, have you heard about this? Last year, Degree changed the formula for their Cool Rush deodorant. Their fans rebelled and wanted the old scent back. And Degree listened. That doesn't happen often.
They admitted that they effed up and are bringing the original Cool Rush scent back. And it's exactly how you remember it. Cool, crisp, and fresh. There's a reason it's the #1 men's antiperspirant, and it's back in Walmart, Target, and other stores for under $4.
So try it and see what the fuss is about. Head to your local stores to try the OG Cool Rush for yourself.
Summer on the south side of Chicago is heating up.
You planning revenge? Aren't you?
The Chi is back May 16th on Paramount+. It's the season of the women.
Women, this is our chance. It's time to get to work.
But the men aren't giving up without a fight.
The street's always gonna have a villain.
No one is backing down in the Showtime original series from Emmy Award winner Lena Waithe.
Why do black women always have to save the day? If we don't do it, who else will?
The Chi, new season streaming May 16th on the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan.
A mother's love deserves a gift like no other. Celebrate her love, strength, and style with heartfelt jewelry from Pandora. From iconic charms to sparkling necklaces, rings, earrings, and more, there are so many ways to say, thank you, Mom. So on Mother's Day and every day, tell her how much she means to you with a gift from Pandora. Visit Pandora in-store or online at pandora.net.
Hey, Janice Torres here.
And I'm Austin Hankwitz.
We're the hosts of Mind the Business Small Business Success Stories, produced by Ruby Studio and Intuit QuickBooks. Catch up on seasons 1 and 2 and join us for a brand new season of the podcast as we talk to small business owners about how they manage and grow their businesses with the help of platforms like Intuit QuickBooks.
Listen to Mind the Business Small Business Success Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.